Yeah. Welcome to Romera Records virtual cast. Today we have on Charles. How's it going, man?
It's going well, Jackson.
Awesome. So, yeah, got you from Podmatch, and basically we're just gonna get into straight into who you are, what you do. I see your Get Payroll on the background, so it kind of gives us a hint, I guess, into what you do. So, yeah, just go ahead and start about who you are, what you do, and how you got started.
Okay, well, I'm a Midwestern boy. I grew up in Iowa. Graduated from high school at 16. Didn't know what I wanted to do. A few months later, after I was 17, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Spent 4 years in service, including 2 years overseas, combat tour in Vietnam. I came back. I was stationed in Kansas City. I met my wife, married her. Best decision I ever made. She was 10 years older than I was and had 5 children. I claim insanity, but we were married for 45 years before she passed. So it worked for us. Um, Went to college after getting out of service, got my BBA and my MBA, sat for and passed my CPA exam while I was still in college, still in grad school. Went to work in corporate, went to work for Texas Instruments. Spent 15 years in the tech in the corporate world, high tech, low tech, small, large, turnaround startups, lots of wonderful experience. Realized I was never going to get to the top. I didn't have the political skills, unwilling to stab people in the back and toss them off the ladder. So if I was going to run a company, and I grew up in a small business, my parents ran, I was going to have to start my own. So Ruth and I, some 30 plus years ago, started our own business together. Uh, Having grown up in a family business, I thought working with your wife was normal. I found out that working with your wife is an unnatural act, but we came to some compromises and made it work. And we've I've now been in business 30 plus years. We provide payroll services to small and medium sized businesses around the country, handling all their payroll needs and associated uh, situations. I became a U.S. tax court practitioner, which allows me to represent them in tax court, even though I'm not an attorney. I can actually act as one in tax court. I have a bar card from the tax court. And that gives me a leg up on my competition. The fact that I'm a CPA and a U.S. tax court practitioner, former member of the Internal Revenue Service Advisory Council, uh, we provide a level of compliance for our clients that our competitors can't. So that's our unique selling proposition.
So let's go back to you said some pretty cool stuff in there, by the way. Let's go back to your Marine time. What did you do when you were in the Marines?
I actually was trained as a computer programmer and systems engineer. And then when I got to Vietnam, I became a combat infantryman.
Okay.
Well, I'd gotten to Nam and I was in the data processing compound, which had 20-foot revetment walls that were 4 feet thick, filled with dirt and so on. I said, I'm not going to come here. I'm 18, 19 years old. I'm not going to come here and sit behind these walls. So I got my CO to transfer me to the Provisional Rifle Company there at Red Beach, which was a base north of Da Nang. And we did all the local interdiction and set up ambushes and so on in that area around Red Beach, up to the Nammo River and uh, west toward the Ashaw and east to the beach. So I spent 6 months basically, yeah, in a limited combat role and got into a few firefights and really a life changing experience. The first time I was in a firefight and that bullet went past my left ear, not my right one, my left one. And I said, Charles, what the are you doing here? I, unlike many of my brothers, survived pretty much in whole. Uh, uh, a lot of them didn't make it back. So it was a life changing experience. taught me a lot of things. The Marine Corps taught me a lot about myself, uh, allowed me to develop self-discipline and the ability to handle situations. Taught me a lot about leadership. I was an NCO. I was a sergeant when I got out. So I think it's a wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I wouldn't do it again.
I know exactly what you so I was in the Air Force and I was stationed in North Dakota, like my entire service history. And yeah, that last part definitely wouldn't trade it for anything, wouldn't do it again. But
Yeah.
I definitely like so even around like Memorial Day or Veterans Day, stuff like that, people are telling me thank you for your service. But I'm just like, dude, I was just I was a bomb loader, so I loaded bombs on the B-52, and
Yeah, but you still took the same risk that they all took, including the pilots that were shot down and so on. You didn't know where you were going to go. You put your life on the line to be between war and your family and your country. Your service deserves as much respect as anyone's does.
and thank you for saying that. But people like you who did who did what you did, I definitely say thank you for your service for what you did.
Well, frankly, I'd trade you. I'd rather spend winters in North Dakota than summers in Vietnam.
I respect that. So as a you said you did the like the computer programming and everything. How was that as far as like, military service? When we think of military, a lot of people forget that they kind of have to do the same kind of jobs that the civilian world's doing. So what would you like a day-to-day task? Like what was that like?
Well, I first became I got sent to the data processing platoon. I was a key punch operator for 2 weeks, and then moved into the equipment room and did sorting and interpreting, and still dealing with punch cards at the time. And then I got to Okinawa, and they sent me and three of my compatriots to IBM for programming school,
Wow.
and we became COBOL programmers. And then over time, I worked into a systems engineering slot because I was good at it. And a lot of my time was spent as an interface between uh, our users and the programmers, because programmers don't speak user and users don't speak programming, and somebody has to interpret.
Hmm.
So that's my job, is to uh, determine what the users want and work with the programmers and the other engineers to design systems that get them what they need, not what they say they want, and not what the programmers say they're going to give them. So there was a lot of learning in that, in dealing with disparate functions and internal languages, and ability to comprehend from multiple points of view, which serves me very well in my current capacity, because I have my business clients on this side and I have the IRS and the states on this side, and they speak different languages, and I have to interpret. So
So when you are at IBM and you're learning this stuff, what's going through your head? Is it like, I'm going to use this and just, be done with it, or you're like this is, something I might travel down a path of in the future, when I get out and become a civilian? Like what were you thinking?
I'm thinking I'm 18 years old and don't know diddly squat about anything. Okay, I just do what I'm told. After boot camp, you've learned, they tell you to go there, you go there. They
Yeah.
tell you to stand there, you stand there. They tell you to run, you run. So it was later on that I realized how valuable the knowledge and experience was, and I've used my programming skills, even though I don't program anymore. The logic and the uh, method of designing things has stood me in good stead. I was in San Antonio a number of years ago and was a controller of a company. and we were having problems with the computers. And so I had the programmer sit down, and even though I didn't know the language, I had him step me through each command. And at about 20 minutes through there, he said this, and I said, whoa, 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 wait. Up here, you said this goes here. Down here, you're saying this goes here. You put yourself into a circular logic routine, and it's just gonna go round and round and round till you hit stop.
Mm.
And he went, "Oh hell!" So the ability to think logically um, is more important than the language. The language is just the tool that you implement the logic flow. And so that training and that experience has been extremely valuable. And programmers don't snow me. They
So,
can't tell me, oh, we can't do this, or well, it's going to go this way. I go, no, 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 wait. You can do this, and you can do this, and you can do this. And they go, well, yeah. And I go, yeah, well, just do it.
so I actually work for Owens Corning as a automation engineer, and the programming that I know is like a PLC's logic controlling,
Mhm.
and that I just from hearing that story, it makes me think that I definitely think military people have been honed in and focused on preventing issues, like preventing problems, preventing and searching out ways to stop things, from going astray. And
Mhm.
that's something I think is one of my specialties at work. Like people will be like, "Well, let's just do this," and I'm just like, "I don't think you understand what's going to happen if we try
Yeah,
this."
exactly.
It's definitely an interesting way of working in that career field of programming from being in the military, because you're, as you said, like the logic thinking, right? Like your ability to look at situations and be aware of like what somebody's asking you to do, and then what the repercussions of doing that is going to happen. And I think that definitely whatever training that you had been exposed to helped you to become good at what you do,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
of all training, what have you, experiences. So it showed in that in the story you just told.
Exactly.
So from there, you get into your schooling, you go to school after that, you're out of the military. What was okay? Yeah, I know you said earlier you were 18 and you were just doing what people told you, but you're out now, and you said you had met your then wife.
Mhm.
What are some things that you had planned? How did things go wrong or right for you?
Okay. Well, a number of things. We were still in Kansas City, and I was working for Colgate Palmolive, and as a laborer, I mean, I had to have a job, paid pretty good. It was union, uh, and I got fired from there. One of the uh, other guys at work decided he didn't like my attitude, and um, we got into a fight, and I put him in the hospital. Uh, yeah, at that point in time, I'm about a year out of the Marine Corps and a year and a half out of Vietnam. I don't. Uh, that was the last fight I ever got into. Uh, it wasn't a good thing, but I was still on military trigger, on combat trigger. I mean, you just don't. You react. You don't think on those kinds of things.
And zero tolerance.
So yeah, zero tolerance. Don't assault me. You're going to regret it. Uh, so anyway, a few months later, we packed up and moved down to Dallas. Uh, Worked down here and started in school. Went to University of North Texas. Looking at a business degree, I'd grown up in a business, and I had a flair for it, and I was thinking about uh, computer science, but that wasn't a real big thing then. I mean, I graduated from college in 76.
Hmm.
So computer science was just not that big. It was a growing field, but it wasn't like it is today. So, and this is a story I tell. One morning, I'm been taking some upper level accounting courses in business and finance courses. And one morning, I'm walking down the corridor on the third floor at the business building in North Texas, thinking, and all of a sudden, depreciation made sense.
Mm.
All of a sudden, you know, I could do the work, but it didn't resonate. All of a sudden, that concept resonated. And that was the defining moment that I went on and became a CPA. Because it just, my mind finally encompassed some of the concepts and it all came together. And I said, wow, I know some of your listeners won't appreciate it, but there are a few things in life. There are some, but there are a few things in life that uh, are better than a balance sheet coming together perfectly. Besides, it's a job that keeps me inside in a Texas summer when it's 105 outside.
Yeah.
So, uh, and the reason I put up with Texas summers is Iowa winters. I grew up in Iowa, and you, having spent a winter in South Dakota, you understand when it gets down to 30 below zero, 105, no big deal. So that was when I decided to become an accountant and a CPA. And though I have an MBA, it's basically a master's in taxation, and I've got like 53 hours of college accounting and tax
Mm.
through my master's degree. So it stood me in good stead and it gave me a real career, uh, and allowed me to do a lot of things and understand a lot of things that people don't. And yeah, it makes me a nerd if you wish, but I'm an analytical person, and for an analytical person, accounting is just and finance are just a fit.
Mm.
So later on in the finance, I to one of the things they always expound on at CPA conferences is you ought to become an investment advisor for your clients. So I went and got my 7 and 66 licenses and became a registered rep, which is a stockbroker. Uh, I could do anything except underwrite municipal bonds. That takes a special license.
Mm.
But what I found was this, and this is what they don't tell you. And it's a very profound lesson. You can't be everything to everybody. And I can't be, at that point in time, a tax expert and an investment expert. Those are full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You have to study, you have to keep up with it, you have to read, you have to go to seminars, you have to take classes to stay current. You can't do both by yourself. So I chose to give up the investment side, though I still dabble in it myself, even though, frankly, I have an investment advisor who handles my money now. I don't. I still work full time, and I've moved from strictly accounting, well, basically accounting, to payroll, and I sold off the accounting practice portion of my practice to my partner,
Mm-hmm.
who still offices in my same building. We built a building here 25 years ago. He still offices with me, though it's now a separate entity. But so I concentrate on payroll, and I find the employment tax aspect fascinating, which is why I became a U.S. tax court practitioner to be able to get another bite at the apple. When the IRS has become streperous and won't listen and does stupid things and files a notice of deficiency, I go, okay, now we start all over again.
Mm.
$60, file a petition with the tax court. It goes to docket appeals and starts the process over again, this time with much more knowledgeable and sophisticated people on the IRS side. So if they've done stupid things, they get done to them,
Mm.
and it's wonderful. And of course, 95% of all U.S. tax court cases are settled pre-court.
Mm.
So even if we have a position that is a loser in court, we can probably settle for half or less pre-court. So it's wonderful.
Why do you think that is? Is it just so monotonous and so ridiculous of the government to even kind of focus in on these types of court cases, or what have you?
Well, for court, there's a couple of things. First of all, they take the chance of losing. So it's called hazards of litigation. And if they lose, it sets a precedent that every other taxpayer can use and say, this case has already been decided at court. I win.
Yeah.
And the court's going to go, yes, that's the same law, and basically the same case. It's already been decided. We're not going to litigate it. You win. They'll give you a summary judgment. The IRS wants to avoid that wherever possible, because if they have anything that is the least bit iffy that they're pushing, and they do it all the time, they don't ever want to go to court with it, because if they lose all of them. So that's hazards of litigation from the IRS point of view. There's a hazard to them that they're going to lose, and lose not only that case, but all the similar cases that are on all the dockets and all the desks in the whole system.
Mm.
So they don't want to go to court. And then it's expensive and time consuming on top of that, and consumes resources. So most of the time, if they can settle for something, they'll do it. And if you've got a good case, you just say, we're not going to settle. You either, dismiss the whole thing, or we're going to court and we'll win.
Mm.
And they don't want that. So then, as far as the IRS and doing stupid things, the IRS is 100,000 civil servants.
Mm.
They don't have the same motivation that we do as entrepreneurs and as business people. That's not how they view the world.
Mhm.
They put in their 40 hours, get their 30 days vacation, get their retirement, and they're happy. And, and, business and entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. And if it's not, government's a very comfortable living. So automatic raises, and you don't have to worry about making a profit, and you don't have to worry about the business going under, because government's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so they have a different motivation. Now, frankly, most of them are good people. They're mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters. They're around us everywhere. They're not bad people, but some of them aren't as well trained as they should be. They get moved into jobs they're not experts at. The law is complicated. The regulations are complicated. The procedures are complicated. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot to keep up on. And if you've gotten moved from department to department within the service, you may not be the expert that we as civilians would like to see you to be. And in many cases, I'm having to explain the law, which I'm an expert at, and a counselor at the tax court, to the IRS people. Sometimes they understand it, and sometimes they resent it. And when they resent it, they just go no, and market not has to go to appeals. And dealing with the IRS is a whole series of appeals, followed by a single, whole series of no's followed by a single yes. It's like sales. You just keep appealing, and tax court if need be. And sooner or later, you're going to get a better result than what you started with.
Mm.
It's just life. So you don't give up. And
Yeah.
that's another thing the Marine Corps teaches, is you don't give up.
Mm. I actually, I was listening to this podcast, and it was about, darn, I forgot the name of the ship that in the was, I think it was Exxon, the oil. You remember the Exxon
Exxon
oil?
Valdez, yes.
So, um, the people of where that happened, they ended up suing Exxon, and they were they were going for like billions of dollars, and then they ended up getting something like, I don't know, they ended up getting awarded like 300 million. I forgot how much. It was nowhere
Yeah.
near what they were asking for. And years later, Exxon had appealed. Well, I mean, they immediately appealed, but it went to court years later, got reduced by a judge to like tens of millions, and then went to court again and got appealed and got reduced again. And then like most of the people who were in that incident had like died already, and very few people end up actually benefiting from the money because number one, it was so little money compared to what they
Mhm.
had asked for. But that showed me how, like, I knew stuff like that happened in court, but I had no idea it was to that level because Exxon, they definitely had the money, but like they ended up using their power and what they're able to do to be able to get court in their favor. And so
Yes.
what you just said of never give up, Exxon took that to the extreme of only owing these people, you know, however many millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars compared to billions of dollars. And they were able to get the government or our system to work in their favor. So have you seen situations like this where maybe somebody owed a ton of
Let
money
me
or something like that?
let me tell you one. This is one of my favorites. We had a client, and they had misfiled the 1099s originally. They had created a file and they sent it in, and it was only for the management or the management 1099s and not the workers. So it gets complicated there, but that's what it was. And later they found that out, so they filed the 400 1099s that they missed. It was a simple mistake. Well, and everything was filed. No taxes were missed. Understand? No taxes weren't paid. This was only information returns. Well, the IRS decided that they were going to penalize my client $100. Well, no, it was going to be $100 originally. And then they said 10% of the value of the 1099s. It was an $80,000 penalty.
Whew.
And so we started fighting it. And we went through all these levels of appeals. And this took years. And we'd ended up with the director of field operations who oversees multiple appeals offices in the United States. And he wouldn't return my phone calls. I'd call him every month for a year or every 2 weeks for a year. And so, since I'd served on the IRS Advisory Council, I knew the deputy chief of appeals in DC. So I called Shelley and said, Shelley, this guy works for you and he won't return my phone calls. Shelley said, I'll have him call you. He called me that afternoon. Okay. Now it's coming from the top down, not from the bottom up. So we discussed the situation and I sent him paperwork and he got that. And over the course of the next couple of months, we came to an agreement that he would take this case and send it to a different appeals office and see what their thoughts of going through the whole thing were, and he'd get back to me.
Hmm.
And about 4 months later, he got back to me and said that the Minnesota office, as opposed to the Arizona office, had determined that, yeah, that was a simple mistake and that they would be issuing a $400 refund and abating the $95,000 of penalty and interest that were on the books. That took 9 years.
Crazy. Oh
And,
my.
and the worst thing, I guess, from my point of view, it was part of the service we provided the client, so I couldn't bill them for all the hours I put into it.
Oh my goodness.
But my Marine Corps training, you complete the mission. Okay. And the mission was to get this stupid penalty abated, and we succeeded.
Yeah.
The lawyers for my client who had given up on it uh, said to me, Charles, next time something like this comes up, I'm calling you.
But
So
but that story speaks volumes into, who you are, and
yeah.
also what you were willing to do to protect, one, to protect your name, and two, to protect your client from
Mhm.
being wronged in any way, shape, or form. You were, you know, not figuratively fighting instead of literally fighting like you were to the last guy. But yeah.
Well, it wasn't physical, but it was a fight.
But I definitely think that, as we talked about earlier, that's just a testament to, as you said, complete the mission. It's a testament to who you are, and what you were willing to accomplish
Yeah.
for your business.
And what I am able to accomplish, the training, the expertise, the knowledge, the contacts, all this kind of thing is part of it. Could I have done it when I first started? No. But having dealt with the IRS, become a U.S. tax court practitioner, served on the advisory council, which put me in touch with the commissioner and all the commissioners of the various business areas within the Internal Revenue Service and the appeals office and Office of Professional Responsibility, and on and on and on. All these things, experience is wonderful, and if you can utilize it, contacts are wonderful if you have them, and so it's I've gotten to that point in my career. There's things I can do that literally, maybe a handful of people in the country can do, and that's great for my clients. It makes me feel good. So it's always nice being an expert at something. Yeah, I know being an expert at dealing with the IRS is not something most people want to become, but for me professionally, it's a real plum.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it works for who you are. As you understand that who the IRS is. Like earlier, you're like, they're just 100,000 people just doing a job, and I think some people forget that. Like they
Oh
think
yeah.
so many people are out to get them. Like the cop that pulls you over. It's like, yeah, that guy might just have a family that he goes home to when he gets off work. Like he's not really out to get you. You just did something that you weren't supposed to, and that's the end of the story. Like,
And he may be having a bad day. Uh, he may have just gotten chewed out by his boss. I tell you one, years ago, my wife had been married before. Obviously, she had 5 children. I had a vendor call me, and it was something I was interested in, and he arranged for us to have lunch. And he picked me up, and we went to lunch down at the Steak and Ale when they still existed. And when we were leaving, uh, it was started to rain, so he ran to get the car, and I'm standing there in the vestibule, and standing next to me is the ex-mayor of Dallas, and I'm saying kind of to myself rather than aloud, but it was aloud. I said, I'm never going to do business with him. He's the spitting image of my wife's ex-husband. And the ex-mayor of Dallas looked at me and says, he already has 2 strikes against him. And I went, no, he has 3. And I couldn't deal with the guy because he was the spitting image of my wife's ex-husband, who was a real asshole. Had nothing to do with him, had nothing to do with the business. I just couldn't do it. So that cop may just, you know, you may look like a childhood enemy of his. I don't know.
yeah,
Things happen, you know. You may look like his wicked stepmother. I don't know.
yeah,
Things happen. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and understand that these are people and people have bad days. So sometimes you get an IRS agent who's just unreasonable about something. It may be him, it may be his training, it may be you, it may be a word you said that triggered him. You don't know. but you just suck it up and appeal.
Yeah. And that's something that, as we said, like people just forget that. And then when you do like understand that, it really shows on like who you are and how you can definitely, make these connections with people and stuff like that. So it's great that
It
you
is.
able to one understand what the IRS does. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people they get terrified of tax time, or they don't understand what's going on. So they need someone like you who has more of a control on the reins of what's going on so that it helps them feel more relaxed, and then also be more educated on every situation they can come into.
I try never to let my clients talk to the Internal Revenue Service
Hmm.
because it's personal to them. It's not personal to me. And what brought this home was during COVID, the IRS screwed up on my business taxes, sent me a notice. Well, I knew it was wrong. So there's a number on it. I called the guy and was explaining that this was wrong. And he took an attitude. And I agree, I was probably a little obnoxious and overbearing because I'm an expert at this. Okay. This was employment taxes.
Hmm.
This was something that's my wheelhouse. I know this stuff backwards and forwards. And he wasn't listening to me. And I found my voice rising and getting more agitated. And I was raising my voice over the phone to him, which did absolutely no good whatsoever. In the back of my mind, I'm going, Charles, don't do this, don't do this. And I find myself yelling at this person over the phone. And I really upset him. And he went ahead and filed a lien
Hmm.
on something that was a mistake.
Hmm.
Because it was COVID, it took me 2 weeks to get a hold of his boss, which is the next step. You move from the first person, you talk to their boss first, then you move to the appeals office. So I got a hold of his supervisor and went through it with him, and he says, "Mr. Reed, you're right. That's not a problem. We'll have that taken care of. It'll all be off the records here in a few days." And I said, "Thank you very much," and let it go. But because it was personal, I got upset and I'm yelling at the guy, and I know better. So if you have a civilian, somebody who doesn't deal with the IRS, it's personal. They're going to get upset, and it doesn't help to get upset with the IRS, as I found out. So no, it's best to have a professional intervene for you and get the personal aspect out of it. Because though I'm an advocate for my clients and their positions, it's not personal. It's not my wallet. And I understand that. Now I fight for them, and I fight for them very hard, but it's a professional gig. It's not personal. And it makes all the difference in dealing with them. And frankly, the IRS would rather deal with me than upset taxpayers.
Well, I mean, you're the professional, right? Like that's definitely what they would much rather
Right.
deal with, is the person
Right.
knows the language. They know what to say and when to say and all that kind of stuff. So uh,
Yes.
that works in your favor for sure.
And they don't have to explain terms of the law or anything else because I'm fully conversant in it. So it makes the conversation much simpler in the conversation. The terms may be complex, but the conversation is simple.
So I guess on the along of those lines, what are some things that you have to deal with, just your everyday clients that might be like misconceptions, things that people might misunderstand or think, they might have some, what do you call them? Just like urban legends or whatever, like, oh, if you do this, I can save some
Well,
money.
I get it all the time. They read something on the web. Their friend told them this. if we set up a trust, we don't have to pay. I'm a sovereign citizen, so I don't have to pay taxes. I can deduct my dog. Uh, you know, it goes it goes on and on and on. There's, as we all know, there's a lot of nonsense on the web. Anybody can put anything out there, and a certain amount of it is just garbage.
Mm.
For the government term, disinformation. And so you have to take,
As Trump says, fake news.
yeah, fake news. When a client says, "Well, I saw this on the internet," I go, "Oh God," and I say, "Do you believe everything you see on the internet?" Well, no. All right, don't believe this. But no, the ERC scandal is going on currently. And here a few months ago, the government stopped accepting ERTC filings because there was so much fraud.
Mm.
And we had client after client call us and say, "Hey, this guy said I can file this and get a refund." I'm going, "No, let me read you the conditions, this, and this." "Oh, yeah, but he said I can." No, you can't do that. And we've had some clients do it. Now they have to pay it back.
Mm.
And it's crazy because you have basically scam artists out there that you get the money back, you pay them a large portion of it, sometimes as much as a quarter of it. And then when the IRS gets around to examining it and saying, "Oh no, this is wrong, you need to send the money back," that promoter's long gone. You can't find him.
Mm.
He's taken his 25% and disappeared. Okay. And now you have to pay it back. The IRS has said that if you apply, I think it's this month, for special dispensation, they'll forego the penalties and interest on the payback. And in fact, in some cases, they'll take back only 80%, saying that the portion that you paid out to the promoter will forgive. This is a major gimme from the Internal Revenue Service. This is incredible. I've never seen anything like it, where they'll forgive a portion of the what you should be paying back to them because it was fraudulent, and you should have known it was fraudulent. But because you got talked into it, they'll let you off the hook. No interest, no penalties, and a discount for the payback if you'll pay it back in full.
Mm.
So, for people who are caught up in this, that's a huge thing.
Mm.
I've never seen the IRS be as generous in any case as they were on this.
That's something that I think about all the time when it comes to people just understanding like what's going on that you aren't keeping up with. A lot of people like to focus in on the things that they're actually interested in, right? Like they're not focusing on things that bore them or and it's like, oh, that probably doesn't apply to me. But there might be some things that apply to you that you just aren't paying attention because you don't want to. Like it's not interested. You're not interested in it. So yeah, that's pretty cool that you not only that you know that info, but you're able to share it with people to show like, hey, pay attention to these things because the IRS is paying attention to it. Like you might, it's kind of like the old talking about the devil. Like you might not believe in the devil, but the devil believes in you. Like the
Right.
IRS,
Well,
they'll do what they want to do.
that's why I wrote my latest book, the Payroll Book, a guide for small business and startups, because there was no good guide out there for small businesses. And I get calls and questions all the time. So I said, I'll write something. 2 years later, this is my fourth book, but this is the biggest one. And I got a real publisher to help me with it, Wiley. So it's a guide for small businesses and startups. It goes through all the payroll and payroll associated things, a lot of horror stories and a lot of don'ts. because that's what you need to know is don't do this. If you're in business, you've got payroll.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if it's your own corporation, you have to pay yourself. And a lot of people don't realize that. If you're a single corporation, it's just you, but you've incorporated for tax savings, you got to pay payroll to yourself and you got to file W-2s and 941s and everything else. So there's a lot of things people don't know. And the book is designed to teach you what you don't know.
Mm.
So, because that's what you're talking about. It's classic. We don't know what we don't know. It's like I recently got a new car, and I'm amazed at some of the things in the book, what it does, and controls here and lights here and so on. I'm not sure I've learned it all yet, but that's not my thing. For me, a car is to get from point A to point B. I grew up with carburetors, and you could tinker with your own car. You could work on your own car.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I worked, I had an MGB, nice little sports car. This is the last time I worked on a car. At about 60,000 miles, the clutch was going out, as clutches do on standard transmission cars, which almost are non-existent now. So I get out my Chilton guide and I flip to the section on changing the clutch. And it says to change the clutch, step 1, remove the engine, see chapter 5. I closed the book and I've never opened it since. I've never worked on a car since. I got outside of my area of expertise and desire to learn, and desire to know. Yeah, I drive the car, and yeah, I should know how to change the clutch. I'll pass.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're
It's
right.
enough to know. It's enough to know it's going bad, and I need to take it to the shop.
Yeah. I mean, but you're right though. Like, when I've got 2 businesses, and when I wanted to start those, I had no idea what to do. And I started buying books and looking around, and I've got 2 business degrees, and in neither one of those business degrees did we talk about step 1. You know what I mean? Like it's always like, all right, this is how you run. I have business management degrees, and like it's all about, once things are going, this is how you manage it. This is how you do stuff. It's never like, you know, find out about trademarks, find out about how to start an LLC, look up your state, see what the qualifications. There's none of that stuff. So that's
Getting the number to file with the state revenue department and a different number to file with the state unemployment department, and what forms you need to file, and when you need to make deposits. And yeah, this is why the book. But yeah, you just don't know. So, and this is why companies like mine exist, to outsource. I don't build my own cars. I don't even work on them. I don't sew my own clothes. I don't slaughter my own cows. I don't do a lot of things. I outsource it. And there's a reason why. It's because you can't know everything. I was reading an article not too long ago, and they were saying that it was about 1900, the year 1900, where a educated person could be conversant with all of the sciences. Because the explosion of knowledge that happened after that was so great that it is impossible for anybody to know the what's going on in all of the sciences. And I understand that. In the field of taxation, there's things I don't do. If you want to talk about it, international transfer pricing, I'm going to send you down to Price Waterhouse. I'm not even going to discuss it. It would be malpractice for me to do so. So I have my niche, and in that niche, I am an expert. And other niches, I use other people. I have got a marketing staff. I learned that I can't market, so I have a marketing staff that handles that for me, and they're experts at it. To me, Facebook is to send pictures of the babies to grandma. Yet we get customers off of it all the time because my marketing people know social media, know how to use it. We're on TikTok and Instagram and all these things, some of which I have never looked at,
Mm,
but they know what they're doing. So I use their expertise. One of my things that I love is your job as the CEO is not to be the smartest person in the room. It's to hire the smartest person in the room.
mm,
So, you have to delegate and you have to give responsibility and authority. This is something I learned in the military. When you put somebody in charge, they're in charge and they get to make decisions.
yeah.
And it has to be that way. You can't give uh, responsibility without authority.
Mm,
It just doesn't work. So you have to delegate and you have to get great people. I couldn't do all the work in the company. I have to have people. They're my greatest asset. So
well, it's about time to wrap up. If you could go ahead, I know you just talked about the book, but let's talk about some more. Give everybody like contact info. You just said you're on social medias. Let's find
right.
out more about.
Okay. We're at getpayroll.com. We're all over. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Get Payroll. The book is available on the payrollbook.com. And for your listeners, if they would like a copy of it, if they will go to the payrollbook.com, enter the discount code podcast, we will ship them free of charge a copy of the book as long as supplies last. So the payrollbook.com. Now, my email is cjr@getpayroll.com. And if they just need an answer to a question, 972-353-0000. Punch one for payroll and ask for Charles.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and spreading your knowledge on that. That was been amazing hearing all the stories and how you're able to help people just figure out, what the heck to do in this world of taxation and IRS, trying to get what they're owed and all this stuff. So yeah, it's been great hearing everything you have for us.
Been my pleasure, Jackson. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.